All right, I think we're live. I think we're live. Let me just do one thing here. Oh, I think we're live, bro. So anyway, um, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back to the theater. Salut, bonjour, bonsoir. Hopefully everybody is in good spirits and in good health wherever you find yourself or wherever you are today. Um, I've been meaning to do this. Uh, it's been it's been difficult the last few days. I've had a few things that I've had to do for other people, for some friends. I've had to take care of my kids. I mean, soccer started this week, and so it was not easy to film. But that's an excuse. I promise to be a bit more um, um, consistent going forward. But as evidenced by the title, this is a topic that I would like to continue on. We've kind of thus far uh, had a series of conversations that sort of relate to this topic. And so this is a continuation of my last live uh, where we discussed authority bias. And we kind of discussed how that affects how we see the world, how that impacts our beliefs, et cetera, et cetera. And so tonight I'd like to discuss, as the title says, why harmful beliefs go viral in the black community and what no one's saying. Okay? Why harmful beliefs go viral in the black community and what no one is saying. That kind of sounds like a sermon or something. I'm not here to preach. Um, but that what brought that on, right? So what brought that on is, you know, for me, have you ever paused um, to kind of think about how certain ideas proliferate? They manage to spread like wildfire throughout the community. Uh, and many of them are accepted without question, debated without evidence, perpetuated without resistance, right? Nobody fights these things. And perhaps these ideas, much like authority bias, perhaps these ideas aren't merely harmless misconceptions, but contagious narratives, which is how I've kind of termed this year, by the way, contagion. You can see it anyway. Contagious narratives that actively constrain our collective potential. Is it meant to do so? And I can argue that we've already heard this before as well. I got beat up on the last live that much of what I was saying was old news. It was old hat, right? It was kind of, right? But Carter G. Woodson has said the same thing about what I'm going to say tonight. So tonight, what I'd like to do in that sort of spirit, being that there is this idea that Black History Month is on the table, or Black history is on the table, that it can be taken away, et cetera, et cetera. I'd like to peel back the layers to uncover how authority bias transforms harmful beliefs into communal truths, and crucially, how we can kind of step in and disrupt the spread of these harmful beliefs. Okay. And when I say harmful beliefs, just so that we're clear, I'm talking about things that kind of stagnate the community, keep the community from moving forward and progressing. Okay. The community. This is not about America. This is not about anybody, but people have to make their own collective contribution, maybe to America, but it has to start with the community, just like it would have to start with your family making a contribution to the community, right? So the first idea that I thought about was something that I'll term belief cascades, right? Belief cascades are how, in my mind, authority bias even goes viral. Okay? Belief cascades are situations where people adopt beliefs simply because those around them have already done so. Right? And a good illustration is, if you're my age, a good illustration would be like in the cartoons, like Daffy Duck, Bugs Bunny. It starts with a small pebble at the top of a mountain, a snowy mountain peak, right? You drop that pebble. It starts small, but it seems to gain momentum. But not only gain momentum, it seems to grow in mass, and quietly it becomes something that is unstoppable, right? Daffy Duck stands in front of it, tries to stop it, thinking it's snow, and can't do so. I think similarly, I think ideas gain unquestionable or unquestioned acceptance. All right, not because they are inherently true, but because they're widely believed, right? So, sorry. Reflect for a moment on an idea that you've heard repeatedly throughout your life. Perhaps it's something like, building wealth within our community is unrealistic or unattainable because the oppressor will simply destroy it. Or, that achieving academic excellence is somehow inauthentic, or it's detached from the Black identity. I think these are things that I've run into, right? These are part of my own experience. These are part of some of the reasons why people make the case, or people that I've known have made the case, that you should take really small baby steps and you shouldn't try and aim big, right? Because of some of these beliefs, which is why I put them in front of you all tonight. But at first glance, if you think about it, these statements seem very trivial. Perhaps they're even isolated, right? However, these same statements in each of our experience, maybe, or maybe just my experience. I got beat up a little bit like that about that on the last live too. But in my experience, I've heard this from people who are teachers. I've heard it echoed by parents, not necessarily my parents, but I've heard it, other people say it, people who were parents, reinforced by celebrities, family members, amplified by the media even, because we have these panels and these conversations out in public now, where people who represent our community are kind of, in a strange way, speaking for us, right? And reinforcing these ideas as we watch, right? And all of these things are kind of assumed as fact without anyone ever truly interrogating the validity of these statements. And this is precisely the kind of miseducation that I think Carter G. Woodson warned us about in his seminal work, The Miseducation of the Negro, right? Which really highlighted how external narratives can quietly control and limit our community's potential. And as a matter of fact, he blames it on the educated blacks. I heard a brother today talk about Amos Wilson, who kind of took Carter G. Woodson's ideas in many respects, among others, but he kind of added an extra thing to it, an extra umph to it, when he said that these are the people that went off to school, got educated, and they come back and they have no solutions for the problems for our community, which is basically what Carter G. Woodson was saying. These people were so educated that they couldn't even see a way to solve the problems of the community when they came back. So now you move on and you say, well, why exactly do these beliefs gain such rapid acceptance, becoming for the most part virtually unchallengeable truths, right? Let's think about that. Why is it that we can't build another Black Wall Street? Why is it that we can't use the church as a place for co-working space or for Spanish lessons or for language learning? Why can't it be a university of some sort? You don't need a piece of paper to do that. You can improve the community just by offering certain things to that community. It doesn't have to be a university in the strict sense, right? So to grasp why limiting beliefs spread so efficiently, we can draw from Malcolm Gladwell's insight, The Law of the Few, right? And Gladwell argues that social epidemics aren't ignited by mass agreement, but by the influential endorsement of a select few group or small group of people, right? Those few rare connectors, those mavens and those persuaders. And you could kind of see this in almost every single doggone movement, right? You could see it as recently as, well, we won't even say it, but you can see it all over the place. That's what the whole podcasting thing was kind of about. That's what was being used in order to get people elected in so many ways. Sorry. It was that very idea of the law of the few. So consider how damaging narratives often originate, not through mass acceptance, but from a handful of credible voices, people we depend on, who unintentionally validate harmful beliefs. Okay. And this has often been the story of the Black community in many ways. And that's one of the things that, Carter G. Woodson kind of pointed out in his book as well. So perhaps because the harmful few, or the law of the few, worked against us, because there were so few of us who had gotten that level of education. Sorry about that. So perhaps, it's coming from a teacher who, in so many ways, or parent, right, who in so many ways kind of subtly lowers academic expectations, right? Who kind of believes that other people from other groups are better at certain things academically than their child might be, than their Black child. Or a famous entertainer glamorizing unhealthy financial, y'all know this thing, right? Financial behaviors, right? Or respected elders unintentionally discouraging ambition, through some sort of casual conversation. Yeah, you don't need to go after that. No, don't do that. You don't need to open a business. You just get the job. We've all been through that as well. We've all heard that before, in some way, shape, or form, by somebody close to us or not that close to us. But we've heard that before. We've seen it in a movie. We saw it in Fences in so many ways, where the son was discouraged from kind of pursuing his dream. And that left a huge resentment on his part. But these influential individuals, even unintentionally, lend credibility to these harmful narratives. To bring up Fences again, you remember that he was saying, they not gonna let him do that. Them white folk ain't gonna let him do that, right? We have these narratives, we have these ideas, and these things keep us from pushing further than we should, right? Which gives us an inadequate sort of like solution to huge problems, right? And so by pushing these ideas, it kind of propels them into a kind of community-wide acceptance. I'll say this too. This is a personal anecdote, and it's kind of like related, but it's the exact opposite. I vividly recall a moment. This is about a few years ago. I had a teacher, and I'm no longer in touch with this teacher. It's just kind of like we fell off. He's still around. He's still great. He's still my teacher. I haven't surpassed him in any sort of way or anything like that. However, it's, I don't even think he's teaching in the capacity that he was before, but a man who I respected greatly, and still do. And, he uh, often talked about how black folks, and hopefully I'm not going too far here, but black folks needed their own sort of myth. And what he was kind of getting at in discussing that was he was trying to communicate, not that we needed to remake the Bible or anything like that, but what he was trying to get at was that we needed our own sort of like fantasy surrounding a social order, or the values of a social order that we ourselves had created, right? Because the one thing about myth is that it plays a critical role in shaping the destinies of entire groups of people, right? Myth, a lot of times people hear the word and they think automatically that we're talking about fake. We're talking about something that's not real, when it couldn't really be further from the truth. This is in many cases a driving force for how people comport themselves, how they interact with the cosmos, where they've come from and where they're going, et cetera, et cetera. It's all in the myth. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons why we don't understand many of these ancient cultures is because we don't really have a congruent myth, a parallel myth that would help us to understand how the Egyptians understood their relationship with a pyramid as a shape, pi, and its relationship to the belt of Orion. Right? So I'm not talking about Greek gods, and I'm not talking about Egyptian deities per se, though those do make for, I would say, fascinating stories. But black people need their own guidance system. Okay? Now, like I said, I initially misunderstood him. Like I said, thinking that he wanted a reinterpretation of Christianity that was tailored more to us, which might not be necessarily a bad idea, but that's not what he meant, right? That's not what he meant. He was just trying to communicate that we didn't just need another religious interpretation. We needed a myth of our own, right? Every successful group has myths. Every single one. And without those empowering narratives, we risk adopting someone else's story, which is what has happened. And historically, adopting external narratives hasn't exactly benefited us. And my teacher understood that these myths, like I said, aren't about historical accuracy. They're about collective belief that is strong enough to inspire real world action and transformation. Okay? Now, when foundational myths, the powerful stories guiding our community, are flawed, or they're borrowed from sources that don't fully reflect our experiences, it sets the stage for significant real world consequences. And the unchallenged, as I said before, the unchallenged acceptance of limiting beliefs, amplified through influential individuals, our pastors, our teachers, our parents, etc., it suppresses risk taking. It does. And I've gotten in trouble for this. I'm saying that not enough risk is being taken, and I'm being looked at as a critic because of that. But I understand where it comes from because of the history and because of the harmful beliefs that are age old. They didn't begin today, right? And what this does in many cases and in many ways, it stifles innovation, and it entrenches a reluctance to question established narratives, right? Because there have been failures, because there have been, when people did reach out, because there have been failures, it kind of keeps people from going a little bit further, and it directs our focus towards, immediate acceptance and superficial validation rather than fostering some sort of long-term substantial progress. Now, I mentioned that, right? Consider the financial decision making, right? If wealth building or entrepreneurial ambitions are implicitly viewed as unrealistic, we naturally default to boycotting powerful corporations as our primary response in the quest for fairness, instead of proactively building our own businesses and institutions to compete and generate sustainable wealth. So, and if academic excellence is perceived as foreign or disconnected from our authentic identities, entire generations might hesitate to fully pursue intellectual and professional ambitions. And this hesitation will, limit our educational and professional achievements as a group. It will affect how we are viewed in the world with regards to the opportunities that are available to us. And that will even further deepen or entrench our status at the bottom of the dominance hierarchy, at the bottom of social hierarchies. It will affect our vocabulary, our ability to speak to the risks that must be taken, right? There'll be certain ideas, there'll be certain words, there'll be certain things that will kind of be cut off. They won't be available to us to change our situation. So take a moment and imagine, after all of that, right? I gave you some of the bad and I've given you some of the good, but take a moment and reflect on the network effects of such beliefs, the good ones and the bad ones, of myth and of, I guess, the harmful beliefs or the beliefs that we've gotten much of the time from Western civilization, Western ideas. Something maybe that I'll go into that has never been said is there's a such thing as Eastern civilization. And there was a guy named Edward Said who wrote a book called Orientalism that kind of discusses this idea. We talk about that another time, but the cumulative impact, right, when these ideas spread and reinforce each other within a community, that would be the network effects. And for those unfamiliar with the term, network effects refer to the phenomena where a belief or behavior gains additional value or momentum as more people adopt it. In other words, it is a feedback loop. For those, I think I made mention of systems thinking at some point, but it would be a feedback loop. It could be positive or it could be negative, right? But it's a feedback loop. So when limiting beliefs, which is what we are dealing with in many cases in the Black community, when they dominate and create a reinforcing loop that denies us the crucial opportunity to effectively compete, to rise or raise our stature in the world, and to significantly enhance our collective well-being and economic power. Okay? That's what happens. But herein lies the hope. The same mechanism driving harmful narratives can also propel empowering ones, right? Which is what I meant when I brought up myth. So reversing these belief cascades requires strategically engaging influential connectors, mavens, persuaders who can credibly challenge limiting beliefs and introduce empowering alternatives. Okay. Let me say one more thing about the limiting beliefs. And I think you'll begin to see the difference in the spread of these limiting beliefs versus maybe something more positive when you start to see the messenger change, when it's no longer a rapper or some celebrity that is trying to engage you on an intellectual level. You'll see it change. And this change ignites when, you know, influential voices deliberately confront accepted limitations, daring to offer compelling, dare I say, authentic counter narratives. Even a single credible, authoritative figure championing a new possibility can reverse the momentum of belief cascades, transforming restrictive assumptions into empowering collective beliefs. Let me get some tea. Right? So that's all I'm gonna say for tonight. I think next time what I'd like to do, if you all will join me, I'd like to dive or delve a little deeper into maybe some of the strategies and examples of communities successfully dismantling harmful narratives. And then we can kind of uncover maybe some of the methods and the methodology to reclaim that collective identity and reshape communal ambitions and decisively maybe pivot towards an authentic and sustainable progress. So, with that said, and I have no idea if somebody tuned in. Oh, I got 2 views. With that said, what I would like to do is say I'll see you next time. And let me look at the chat. Maybe there's somebody who wanted to say something. I don't even know how to chat back. I think you just read it. But if anybody has anything to add or question, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I'm going to get up out of here. It is 10:32 p.m. It doesn't look like anybody has a question. And I'm going to try and evolve this show eventually as well to a point where maybe I could take calls. All right. Well, that's it.